Chapter 159, The Capital 3. Lavera took the lead in Alcard Street. The shops in this street were different from the central district, with their size being the most distinguishing difference. Most shops in the central district used an entire building, while the shops in this street shared a building with at least 2 to 3 shops in one building. They didn't even have a door. Instead, they just demolished a wall and displayed their merchandise. Such characteristics intrigued Mare. Mercenaries and adventurers were the ones who primarily used the shops in the street. As a result, the shops displayed several suspicious weapons and unappraised artifacts they had pillaged during their quests. Mare spoke excitedly. "Didn't you often read it in novels and stuff? Something along the lines of the vendor selling old weapons at a really low price, but instead they happen to be very powerful weapons. I think street vendors in this kind of street just bribe the authors to advertise their shops." Eugene scanned the weapons displayed in the street stall with an apathetic face. 300 years ago he had also searched for weapons in stalls like this since he had been a mercenary, a very renowned mercenary at that. However, the quality of the weapons in these stalls didn't change much over the years, and one thing remained the same: they were cost-effective. Vendors are not idiots. Why would they sell their product at a dirt-cheap price without knowing their value? Eugene stopped mid-sentence. The moment he bought the piece of the moonlight sword at an auction house crossed his mind. That piece had been dirt cheap. "Why did you stop talking?" Mare asked. "There can be a diamond amidst a pile of dumps," Eugene spoke solemnly. "Diamond? How can a person distinguish an expensive jewel from poop when the said jewel is covered with poop and piss? Please don't say gross stuff when we have just eaten." "Poop," Eugene instantly spoke. Mare's face crumpled up like a paper ball. Was that really what the hero from 300 years ago should say? It wasn't the same, but Lavera thought along the same lines as Mare as she walked in front of them. "He doesn't act like a noble," Lavera thought in surprise. The mistress of the Lionhearts, Ancilla, was an epitome of a noble lady. On the other hand, Gerhard from the Annex wasn't really an epitome of a noble, but he still unconsciously acted with a dignity akin to a noble. However, Eugene never acted like a noble, even though he was considered to be worthy of the name Lionheart more than anyone else. "It's not for me to judge." Lavera unnoticeably shook her head. Lavera was an elf, but she had almost no elven elitism left in her mind. The years she had spent as an abused slave obliterated the elitism from Lavera. It wasn't just Lavera. There was also Nerissa, who worked as an apprentice maid in the Annex. In fact, most elves who lived in the Lionheart Forest no longer had that elitism. For Lavera, Eugene was a master whom she wanted to serve. So what if Eugene didn't act like a noble? Lavera may not have felt a dignity of a noble from Eugene, but she had felt a dignity of an absolutely powerful man from him. When Eugene and Lavera were in Samar Rainforest, they had encountered a typical ordinary noble and a barbarian after exiting the slave market. Recalling the memory of that moment always sent a shiver down Lavera's spine. Elves should never have run into barbarians in the rainforest. The barbarian looked especially ferocious and stronger than any other barbarians Lavera had ever seen. However, Eugene had treated the barbarian like a baby, sending the barbarian fly in the air. There was also the incident with the noble. The man had acted like a typical noble, but he had blatantly looked at Lavera with a disgusting look. She was well aware of these kinds of nobles, who treated elves like objects, playing with them as they pleased and destroying them in the end. However, the noble had pathetically begged for his life, kneeling in front of Eugene. "It's this way." Lavera tried to ignore the rising heat from deep inside her heart. The shop where Lavera ordered her prosthetic eye was in the back of the alley. It wasn't at the very end, but people surely wouldn't be able to find the shop from the main street. The shop was intentionally located there to ensure that people who didn't need prosthetics wouldn't spend time window shopping, naturally making the customers who actually needed prosthetics shop at ease. When Lavera opened a wicket door under an old sign, various smells assaulted Eugene's group, among which some especially stood out to Eugene: painkillers, oil and dye. "Did Nerissa also make her prosthetic leg in this shop?" Eugene asked. "Yes." Lavera nodded. "A knight from the main estate recommended the shop to us. Apparently this shop's owner is quite famous among mercenaries and adventurers. He seemed famous for a good reason." Eugene scanned through prosthetic arms and legs that were displayed like decorations. When he stared at a prosthetic arm with open fingers, He could feel a certain desire rising inside him. Can I touch it? I want to fold all its fingers except for the middle one. What are you, a child? Mare quietly spoke after reading Eugene's thoughts. Embarrassed, Eugene cleared his throat. You came on time. When the door to the workroom at the back of his shop was opened, an old man with a bushy beard walked out. His glasses were noticeably thick and shone under the light as he looked at Eugene's Lionheart uniform. Don't mind me. Eugene raised his hands, saying he wasn't here to pressure anyone. The man bowed shortly, then glanced at Mare standing beside Eugene as he spoke. There is not much to see in here, but take your time. Can I touch them? Eugene calmly asked. The products on the shelves are samples, so you can touch them, the old man explained and then turned his head to Lavera. It will fit perfectly, but let's go inside and check again. I have to check the symmetry and the color. Okay. Lavera nodded as she meekly followed the old man. After Lavera and the old man went to the workroom, Eugene reached his hand to the prosthetic arm as if he had waited for this moment. Don't do it. Mare instantly warned Eugene. Fidgeting with the prosthetic arm, Eugene cleared his throat. I'm not doing anything. I'm just touching it. Since these prosthetics were used by mercenaries and adventurers who lost their limbs, several of them had hidden devices inside. Some of these prosthetic users could shoot arrows when they bent their wrists, or a knife popped out from their finger at their own will. Some even installed a cannon shooter in their prosthetic knees. So many variations existed. Several samples of prosthetic eyes were on display too. They weren't the highest class prosthetic eyes that could be connected to the user's optic nerve, but they looked incredibly real, almost appearing like somebody had actually plucked out their eyes and displayed them. Eugene observed those for a moment, but then he suddenly started. He didn't know what had happened, but he couldn't hear anything from the workroom. No one was in the room. Until now, Eugene had been able to sense two people inside the workroom, but for some reason that he couldn't understand, he felt as if they had disappeared. It only took several steps for Eugene to open the workroom door. Eugene wasn't able to find the old man or Lavera. It wasn't just them. There was now nothing in the workroom. What happened? Mare stutteringly asked. Without answering, Eugene looked around the workroom. Oil and dye stains were still visible on the wallpaper. Eugene could still smell the painkiller oil and dye. This room had definitely not been empty before. After pulling out Akasha from the cloak of darkness, Eugene took a second look around the workroom. He could see a soundproof spell, a dustproof spell, and a humidity control spell. The building was old and there were other shops nearby. Of course, spells like these existed in the workroom. With a grim expression, Mare mumbled, "No magic has been violated." The magic spells were engraved on the wall and the floor, but they hadn't been violated or tampered with. It wasn't like the shop's wall had been demolished. No new magic had been added to. No one had used Blink to take the two away. If someone really did so, Eugene and Mare would have sensed it. Teleportation inevitably distorted spaces. There was no window in the workroom, and the only door was the one Eugene used to enter. This place was a physically and magically sealed room. Still, everything in this sealed room had disappeared. One elf, one human, and every object in the workroom. Well, not everything had disappeared. When Eugene took a third look around the room, he could see shelves, decorations, and numerous tools hanging on the wall. The things hanging on the wall hadn't disappeared. The only things that had disappeared had been on the floor. Eugene silently glared at the floor. It was squeaky clean and oil stains and dyes just remained on the wall. Unable to believe her own words, Mare gasped. Something appeared on the floor? It has been overlapped. Eugene stroked the floor after he squatted down. Like a shadow. The light hanging on the ceiling connected Eugene and his shadow. With a cold look, Eugene scowled at his shadow. I didn't know they would do such a thing, Eugene muttered, standing up. There was no more information to gain from this workroom. It was impossible to search for the missing people, Lavera and the old man. No archwizard would be able to tell what kind of magic had been used to make the two disappear. It couldn't be helped. The magic that was used wasn't exactly classified as usual magic. 300 years is really a long time. Clicking his tongue, Eugene stood up and lifted the cloak of darkness. After reading Eugene's mind, Mare approached him and crawled into the cloak. I didn't know I would be doing this today, Eugene quietly muttered under his breath as he returned to the shop. The previously empty show now had other customers waiting inside. The three people were wearing big hoods pulled down to their faces. Eugene stared at them, remaining calm. "Follow us," a man spoke without revealing his face. Eugene quietly chuckled as he flicked his finger. Whoosh. The wind blew even though the window wasn't open, flipping the customers' hoods open. "Before you state your businesses, why don't you introduce yourselves first?" Three dark elves scowled at Eugene. The male dark elf who had spoken first glared at Eugene. "We are the Fury Independence Army." "I know." Eugene could see the tattoos on their left collarbones, the reversed shape of a goat's skull. The Fury Independence Army had been carving the tattoo on themselves for 300 years. "I don't want to use a violent method to take you away." "Do you really think you can drag me away with a violent method?" Eugene asked. "Arrogant human bastard." The other dark elf who had been quiet spoke in a hostile tone. When Eugene heard the dark elf, he burst into laughter. How dare a fallen dark elf who even betrayed their kind spew bullshit? Eugene shot out insults, tilting his head in contempt. Upon hearing Eugene's remark, the dark elves frowned. The two dark elves reacted fiercely, but the one who had spoken first didn't show any reaction. "If you reject our request or try to resist, we can't guarantee the hostage's safety," the male dark elf spoke again. "If you wanted to converse with me, you should have asked for a handshake first." Eugene shot back. "I feel bad about it. So what are you going to do? Will you follow us or get dragged away? Can I just kill you all and go alone? You can just tell me the location." Eugene beamed. "You have a violent temper. I was about to happily end my day out in the city, but you guys have fucked it up." Eugene wasn't just acting hot-headed as he spoke. He continued to talk as he looked around the shop. There were 3 dark elves in the shop, and Eugene couldn't sense any other dark elves' presence. No change had occurred on the floor too. It was weird since she must be observing the situation. Was she not going to show up here even if Eugene had beaten the shit out of her people? She was uselessly full of love for her kind, so wouldn't she appear if Eugene slaughtered her people? The air in the shop became tense. It wouldn't be strange if any of them started attacking each other any second. The 2 hot-headed young dark elves prepared to pounce at Eugene. Unable to say anything, the dark elf who spoke first just glared at Eugene. "Well, let's forget about it," Eugene said as he shrugged. "It's not like my kidnapped maid will return after I kill you guys." "Do you really think you can kill us?" one of the young dark elves sarcastically asked, snorting. Not smiling anymore, Eugene stared at the dark elf. "You think I can't?" Feeling Eugene's intense desire to kill him, the dark elf shuddered as he felt overwhelmed. He couldn't believe a 20-year-old man was able to show this fierce desire to kill someone. The dark elf subconsciously took a few steps back, trembling. He wasn't able to say anything anymore. "Lead the way." Eugene covered his arms using the cloak that was hanging over his shoulder. It was to pull out weapons whenever he needed them, but the cloak of darkness itself was an excellent armor. "Will you walk there? Or?" "I will walk. I won't use other methods since your princess might try to fuck with me. It's not too far away." The dark elves put the hoods over their heads again as they exited the shop. Leading the way, the dark elves entered a back alley. Eugene followed them without hurry. Eugene had a few questions in mind. The Lionhearts had been expecting the dark elves, led by Iris, to make contact. That was why Carmen and the 3rd Division of the Black Lions were at the main estate right now. But this wasn't the only precaution the Lionhearts had taken. People in the main estate were able to collect a variety of necessary information. The information on dark elves was one of them. To prepare for being contacted by dark elves, the Lionhearts had been keeping an eye out on who had entered Kiel. However, dark elves had never entered the Kiel Empire. On top of that, this was Ceres, the capital. People at the gate were very thorough in identifying the person who went through the gate. They entered Kiel illegally, Eugene thought as he clicked his tongue. They had started off on the wrong foot. Iris had no intention of taking elves from the Lionhearts in a legitimate way. I don't think she was this stupid 300 years ago. Eugene had heard that Iris was in a tight spot in Helmuth. She wanted to become a new Demon King, inheriting the title of Demon King of Fury. However, there were high-ranking demon folks who had higher chances of becoming the next Demon King than Iris. The 3 dukes in Helmuth never considered Iris as their competitor. Black Dragon Ryzakia might say he wasn't interested, but the 2 remaining dukes still were more powerful than Iris. Iris critically lacks supporters. It was her principle to only take dark elves under her wings. She had recently been persistent with her principle, but it was only to the level of hiring beastfolk mercenaries, not taking them under her wings. That was why Iris was hell-bent on increasing the number of dark elves. Still, how dare she just try to take an elf away like this? She had committed a heinous crime. As he felt a boiling urge to kill her, Eugene glared at the back of the dark elf walking in front of him. "It's this way," the dark elf said, pointing at an iron door that led to a basement of a pretty old building. Eugene could see the word "Bullshot Mercenaries" on the iron door. Did she take over a mercenary guild's office? Since when was she here? With those thoughts in mind, Eugene gestured with his chin. "Open it." The dark elf cautiously opened the door, revealing the stairway that led to the basement. No light source existed, so it was hard for Eugene to see an inch ahead. Could Eugene create light with his magic? Oh, it wouldn't work. She was the owner of the demon eye of darkness. No light could light up the darkness created by Iris. The darkness created by her demon eye looked like darkness, but it was no ordinary darkness. When he had gotten down to the basement, Eugene could see a dark elf putting her leg on top of the table as she leaned on the red sofa. The basement. No, the office was very large, but it was very shabby. "Kid." The dark elf was the leader of the Fury Independence Army, Rakshasa Princess Iris. Lightly tapping a liquor bottle on the table with her foot, Iris smiled. "Do you know how to drink?" Compared to 300 years ago, not much had changed. Maybe her clothes and hair had changed a bit. Her white hair used to be very long, but she had cut her hair to shoulder length. Instead of leather armor, she was wearing a red suit, but she hadn't fully buttoned up. Eugene could see her collarbones. A gold necklace could be seen around her neck. Fancy-looking rings and a watch in her hand twinkled. "You look more like a mafia boss than a princess," Eugene spoke honestly. Iris smiled, revealing her white teeth. Chapter 160. The Capital 4. To be honest, Eugene wouldn't have recognized Iris if he didn't know she was behind all this. Iris' change was shocking to that extent. Iris had originally been an elven ranger, so she usually wore leather armor and a camo poncho for mobility. Even when she led the dark elves in field operations, Iris stuck to the same outfit. She knew how to hunt elven rangers. Therefore, she trained her subordinate dark elves to be hunters that hunted the original elven hunters. When she had begun to fight in front of the Demon King of Fury's castle, she had worn black chain armor and swung a scimitar to block the hero's party instead of her usual outfit. Eugene could still recall the memory vividly. The Demon King of Fury's children were adopted. Some children weren't even demon folks. However, they were one of the toughest enemies he had to fight against in Helmuth. "I should have killed her." Eugene silently gritted his teeth. However, he couldn't. Unlike the other Demon Kings, the Demon King of Fury had sacrificed his life to let his children escape, allowing Iris and Oberon to survive the hunt of the hero's party. Iris, whom Eugene couldn't kill at the time, was sitting in front of Eugene after 300 years. She looked unrecognizably different now. "Kid." Putting her right foot on the table this time, Iris tilted her head. "Why aren't you kneeling in front of me even though you know who I am? You don't look like the head of Bullshot Mercenaries. Are you a new mafia boss that reigns over this street? Are you spouting bullshit because you want to pretend to be brave?" Iris gave a twisted smile. Without answering, Eugene looked beyond Iris. 10 dark elves were standing behind the sofa, all wearing red suit jackets. The organization must have undergone a major change over the past 300 years. Eugene assumed. There were some familiar faces among those elves. They had been serving Iris as her right-hand elves for a long time. These were the dark elven rangers who ambushed elven rangers in dark mountains and forests. Well, people will treat them like lunatics if they still wore ponchos in this city. However, he felt a group of dark elves wearing the same red suit jacket would be treated the same. "Where is she?" Eugene cut to the chase. "I have heard there are over 100 elves in your family's forest. Why are you worrying about one elf? Cut the bullshit." Eugene strode toward Iris. Even though Eugene was shortening the distance between him and Iris, the dark elves behind Iris showed no reaction. That was also the same for Iris. Keeping her twisted smile in place, Iris just stared at Eugene. It was understandable since she had no reason to stay on alert. She was the Rakshasa Princess Iris, the living legend who fought in wars 300 years ago and inherited the Demon King of Fury's power. If Iris hadn't insisted that she was the second Fury and had given up on becoming a Demon King, no, if she hadn't been so obsessed with the purity of her supporters, then Helmuth would have 4 dukes instead of 3. Indeed, she is still the living legend. Eugene could see that. He felt how confident and relaxed Iris was. Some might say that was very arrogant of her, but she hadn't completely lowered her guard. Not missing Eugene's every move, her eyes were sharp like that of a predator watching its prey's move. I won't be able to win if I fight her right now, Eugene admitted without making up excuses. If Eugene fought Iris head-on, he would definitely lose. The possibility of Eugene winning in this fight was close to 0. He could run away, but that was all Eugene was able to do right now. 300 years was a long time, and Iris' outfit was not the only thing that had changed. Didn't you want to talk to me? Eugene spoke as he sat down on the sofa across from Iris. Kid. Iris' smile became more twisted. You realized you wouldn't be able to win if we fought, didn't you? Although she had glanced at Eugene for only a very short moment, Iris figured Eugene out. As she smiled, her red eyes resembled blood crescent moons. I like how you understood the situation quickly. I have heard several rumors about you. Rumors are bound to be exaggerated, but I guess it doesn't apply to you. Iris sat up straight. Thump. When she lightly pounded the table with her foot, the liquor bottle on the table flew up in the air. Iris chuckled as she caught it midair. The elf is safe. The light on the ceiling flickered. Actually, the light hadn't flickered, but the room darkened for a moment. Iris had made more darkness with her demon eye of darkness. Her darkness didn't mix with the darkness that originally existed. Instead, her darkness was a dark, thick lump that looked like darkness. As you can see, I didn't corrupt her either. Iris shoved her hand in her squirming darkness. At first glance, her darkness resembled the darkness spirit which Eugene had seen back at Black Lion Castle. However, this wasn't a spirit, mana, or demonic energy. I don't want to make random elves into dark elves. I first ask their opinions and persuade them if they refuse. Iris spoke as she dragged the unconscious Lavera out of her darkness. As if Lavera was a piece of baggage, Iris threw her in Eugene's direction. Whoosh. Eugene summoned the rushing wind to catch Lavera. He checked for signs of injury on her, and finding none, he laid Lavera beside him, relieved. Meanwhile, Iris opened the liquor bottle. She then pulled out an ice bucket and glasses from the darkness that hovered around her, but she suddenly frowned. Oh yeah. I also had this. With a nonchalant face, Iris pulled out the old man, who had previously disappeared along with Lavera, from her darkness. Upon seeing Iris grabbing the old man by his neck, Eugene instantly pulled out a dagger from the cloak and stabbed the table. Easy, kid. Iris chuckled as if she was amused by Eugene's reaction. Whoosh. The darkness covered Iris' right eye, and it also rose up on the table, swallowing the dagger. When the darkness disappeared, the dagger was no longer on the table. I don't intend to insist on killing a poor old man who got entangled in this matter. Didn't you just try killing him? Well, I didn't have a reason not to kill him. As a human, it is natural for you to protect another human's life. But I couldn't understand your situation since I am not a human. Do you get what I am saying? Iris giggled away, putting big ice cubes in her glass one by one. And as an elf, it is also natural for me to protect elves. Aren't you a dark elf? Eugene sneered at her. They both have elf in the names, right? Let's think outside the box. You have kidnapped my maid out of the blue. I wanted to have a conversation. After filling the glasses with liquor, Iris pushed a glass in Eugene's direction. But I didn't think you would actually involve yourself in this matter if I took her, Eugene Lionheart. I guess it was difficult for you to visit the Lionheart's main estate, huh? Eugene picked up the glass, keeping his composed smile. An elf protected by the Lionhearts had ordered her prosthetic eye and would be picking it up. Eugene didn't know when Iris had settled down on this street, but it wouldn't have been difficult for Iris to hear that much. Yes, you are right. Iris didn't deny it. It was difficult, figuring out how to deal with the idiots who still believe they are high and mighty as they did 300 years ago. Iris raised her glass to her lips. It wouldn't have been difficult for me to visit your house, sit in your drawing room and drink tea as I smile and ask, could you let me take the elves under your care? But what about the Lionhearts? After refilling her glass with liquor, Iris drank up in one breath. I'm a dark elf and a leader of the Fury Independence Army. I'm also called the Rakshasa Princess. So, would you guys, the Lionhearts who are still high on their image of the powerful Lionhearts without knowing your places, have let me take the elves if I had asked you? I don't think so. You guys would continue to stand on your stupid pride and kick me out saying, we don't negotiate with dark elves or, we don't plan on helping the second coming of the Fury, right? Eugene didn't deny that. Even if Eugene didn't ask them to, no one in the Lionhearts would try to make deals with Iris. No matter how polite Iris was, the Lionheart clan would never negotiate with her as long as she was a dark elf and dreamt about being the second coming of the Fury so she could become a new demon king. So, I decided to be considerate of you idiots. Licking the liquor drops on her lips, Iris smiled with her eyes. I was wondering about what method I should use, but I heard you were out in the city with the elf, kid. So, I opened a pathway in that smelly shop's shadow. I'm sorry, but I'm not the Lionheart clan's patriarch. Eugene shrugged. You, the very person who is called the future of the Lionhearts, are right in front of me, so why does it matter? Do you not understand the situation? Iris chuckled as she put her hand in her darkness again. Like, she pulled out a heavy iron lump, but Eugene wasn't familiar with the shape. Still, that didn't mean he didn't know what that was. It was a gun. The portable cannon shooter that fired metal bullets with gunpowder. It was easy to use, but the martial artists who were proficient in mana control didn't really use them. The reason was simple. There were other weapons that were faster and stronger than guns. Instead of shooting bullets by blowing up gunpowder, martial artists could just swing their sword force-coated weapons or shoot mana arrows with special-made bows. Besides, that gun was useful in hunting animals but didn't really work on monsters. I can kill you right now. Iris pointed her heavy revolver at Eugene. It is easier to understand your situation this way, right? Kid, bring the elves who are being protected in your family's forest to me if you don't want to die. They wouldn't want to be dark elves, Eugene spoke, still looking at Iris. I will persuade them until they wish to be one of us. I am very good at persuading elves into doing so. She spun her giant revolver. How about you? I know you are strong, but are you strong enough to kill me? Well, I know the answer, you aren't. You have no chance of winning if you fight against me. Threatening a Lionheart, huh? Haha. You're really naive like a kid. Didn't I tell you just now? To me, the Lionhearts are a bunch of assholes who are deluding themselves, thinking they are still high and mighty as they were 300 years ago. Your ancestor, Vermouth, was nightmarishly strong, but has anyone as strong as him born in the Lionhearts after he died? Without answering, Eugene set his glass to his lips. There is no one. That would be impossible. Vermouth was a real monster. Threatening a Lionheart, ha ha. So what? You guys should actually thank me. I have been respectful toward the Lionhearts. Or else I would have slammed your heads on the floor. Iris laughed frantically, her shoulders trembling. The entire time she laughed, her darkness wobbled, pressuring Eugene with its immense power. Eugene drank the liquor while feeling his skin tingling and his hair standing on end. His throat turned hot as if he had swallowed a ball of fire. That ball of fire warmed Eugene's body from the inside. I should have killed her then. Eugene tightly clenched his fists. He wasn't sure how many times he had regretted this matter. Had he killed her 300 years ago, he wouldn't have to deal with this fucking bitch now. Clicking his tongue, Eugene put down his glass. I need time to think. I have given you time since you have stepped into this place, kid. I let you sit in front of me and gave you a drink. I have done all that for you while not killing you. All of that was time given to you. Instead of coming up with an answer, Eugene was going through an internal conflict. Should I just fight head-on? What are my chances of winning? Won't it be better to attack her first and retreat later than listening to her bullshit? Various thoughts crossed his mind. Eugene would definitely have gone through with his thought if Lavera and the old man from the shop weren't here. The unconscious duo was lying beside him, limiting Eugene's options. The situation made him frustrated, boiling up from the inside. Is it not the time yet? I don't want to get Lavera and the old man entangled in this. Eugene thought as he crossed his arms, clicking his tongue. Do you remember Signerd? Eugene decided to buy time for now. He is at the Lionheart's forest too. He grinds his teeth every night, wishing to kill you someday. I remember. He is the elf who is full of vengeance even though he is pathetically weak. Kid, I don't like talking about the old time. Iris spoke discontentedly. I have heard a lot about you from Signard too. The traitor of elves. You are the elf who killed the most elves. Is it true you made your elven prisoners kneel and slit their stomachs? Oh right. You also left them to die after you pulled out all of their intestines, am I right? It is ancient history now. Your parents weren't even born. No, one of your ancestors must have been a sperm in Vermouth's testicle at the time. Iris twisted her lips. Of course, I regret my actions during the period. I went too far, but those regrets give me more reason to make elves lead better lives. You just want to increase the number of dark elves. Wouldn't it be better to be a dark elf and gain freedom instead of worrying about when they will die from the demonic disease? I'm going to become a demon king someday. When that day comes, every dark elf will be revered. Iris spoke as she turned the revolver cylinder. Do you want to talk about the old times with me or something? If you become my friend, I will tell you as much as you want. Who would win if Vermouth and Hamel fought? Eugene asked out of the blue. Iris, giggling, stopped for a moment. She must not have expected Eugene to ask such a random question in this situation. Her pathetic madness mixed with her rationality. What? Iris asked, dumbstruck. Vermouth versus Hamel. Who would win? Eugene calmly repeated. You are asking a random question. Of course Vermouth will win. Won't Hamel win? Hamel, huh? He is an idiot who is called stupid by future generations, so how can that was win? You are talking nonsense. You're pretty harsh on Hamel. He might win, you know. Mumbling, Eugene picked up the liquor bottle. Then I will ask you another question. Who is more handsome? Hamel or Vermouth? Are you crazy? Iris tried hard to not gape. I'm just curious, that's all. It's not worth answering. You mean it's hard to choose, right? That must mean Hamel and Vermouth were equally handsome. Hamel was an ugly bastard. A piece of rugged clothes would be more handsome than him. She was being too harsh on Hamel. Holding back the rising fury inside him, Eugene poured Iris a drink. Still, Hamel is more handsome than Molen, right? What are you doing? Iris glared at Eugene. I'm trying to be your friend. So friend, why don't we hang out later? Can you just go home today? Thump. She slammed her right foot on the table, wrecking the table. The liquor bottle and the glasses flew in the air. Eugene leaned back to avoid getting drenched in alcohol. You are truly something. Iris looked at Eugene coldly. So, a 20-year-old human bastard is acting this shamelessly in front of me, huh? I never thought one of Vermouth's descendants would act like you. 300 years is a long time. Eugene shrugged. Yes, it is a long time for humans. There must be dozens of ancestors between you and Vermouth in the family tree, right? If that wasn't the case, I would have considered you a descendant of Hamel, not Vermouth. Iris muttered under her breath, opening her revolver's cylinder. Since you are having a difficult time choosing, I will help. Why don't we have a fun game? When she opened the cylinder, the bullets dropped on the floor. Iris put one of the bullets in the cylinder and spun it in front of Eugene. It's a simple roulette game. We are going to take turns pulling the trigger. If the bullet goes through your head, I won't be considerate of the lion hearts. I'm going to bring your body to the main estate right away and bring all the elves with me. What if the bullet goes through your head? Eugene asked. Then I will let you return. I won't try to negotiate with the Lionhearts regarding this matter anymore. Iris spoke as she put her finger on the trigger. As she put her revolver against her temple, she continued to look at Eugene. You can give up now if you are afraid. But you must bring the elves to me just like we discussed. How does this sound? You don't have to gamble with your life. Shoot. Eugene crossed his legs as he interlocked his fingers on top of his knee. You pull the trigger once and I pull the trigger once. That's how this game goes, right? Click. As soon as Eugene had finished talking, Iris unhesitatingly pulled the trigger and beamed as she handed Eugene her revolver. Don't delude yourself, kid. What? Eugene asked back. I'm saying don't delude yourself. By thinking a bullet made from lead won't be able to go through your head. I created the bullet with my demon eye. No matter how much mana you have, you won't be able to stop my bullet from going through your head. Then how about you? I won't get shot. Aha. So this wasn't a fair game from the start, huh? Eugene pulled the trigger, chuckling. Click. The sound of the hammer hitting an empty chamber echoed in the air. Eugene returned Iris' revolver to her. Shoot, Eugene spoke concisely. Are you out of your mind? Iris asked in shock. Well, it's true I will die in this game and you won't. But all I need to do is make a bullet go through your head, right? So you will be the only one to bet your life? I said shoot, Eugene repeated. Iris was right. This was a simple roulette game. If a person put a bullet and spun a gun cylinder, an ordinary person wouldn't know which chamber held the bullet. But Eugene did. He checked how many rounds the cylinder had turned. When he held the revolver, he could feel the bullet's location by the slight difference in weight. The bullet was created by Iris' demon eye of darkness, but it existed like an object, meaning Eugene could feel its weight. Eugene concluded that the bullet would be fired if Iris pulled the trigger this time. Iris tilted her head sideways and pulled the trigger. Another sound of the hammer hitting an empty chamber echoed in the air. The bullet wasn't fired. Instead of being shocked, Eugene burst into laughter. Wow, do you really want to win this way? I don't know what you're talking about. Iris handed him the revolver with a twisted smile on her face. It was simple. The bullet's location had changed. Since the bullet was made with Iris power, she could always make it disappear or appear again. If Eugene pulled the trigger this time, the bullet was bound to go through his head. Chuckling, Iris gestured to her dark elves who were standing behind. One of the dark elves came up to her and put a cigarette between her fingers. Iris used her golden lighter to light the cigarette and inhaled the smoke deeply. You can give up now, Iris spoke as she enjoyed the smell of cigarette smoke inside her mouth. But I do want to see your brain popping out of your he. Before she finished talking. Boom. The door to this basement got crashed. Chapter 161. The Capital 5. When the door flew into the basement, Eugene grabbed Akasha from the cloak. Zing. Eugene instantly cast Blink on Lavera and the old man. It was tricky and there were so many things to consider when a wizard used Blink on somebody else. However, it wasn't a big problem for Eugene. The most important thing while casting subspace magic was to accurately calculate very complicated magic formulas in accordance with coordinates and mana flows that differed every time when a wizard used it. Since his past life, Eugene had been great at sensing mana, and his exceptional body only made his calculations speed faster. On top of that, Mare was assisting Eugene right now, so it was only natural for Eugene's subspace magic to be fast and accurate. There was also another reason why Eugene could successfully cast magic. Iris' attention had shifted when the door had gotten blasted away. Rather than focusing her attention on stopping Eugene from casting magic, Iris now paid more attention to the person who had smashed the door to enter the basement. Thanks to this, there was a gap in Iris' control over the basement. The sound of someone walking down the stairs quietly echoed in the basement. The one who entered the dark basement was Carmen Lionheart. Holding an unlit cigar in her mouth, she walked through the clouds of dust. Her gray hair and coat hanging on her shoulder flapped in the wind. Carmen slowly looked around the basement. 10 dark elves were standing up. Iris was sitting in front of those elves with her legs crossed, and Eugene was holding Akasha across from Iris. It was Mare who had told Carmen about the location. The Lionheart main estate and annex were very big. It didn't matter to Eugene because all he did was cultivate, but that was not true for Mare. She was not only adored by Ancilla and Gerhard, but also by the servants such as Layman and Nina and the White Lion Knights. Therefore she got called over a lot, but Eugene couldn't accompany her on every occasion. To solve this problem, Eugene had installed a magic communication device in his room and connected it to Mare. The communication device was often used by both of them. When Eugene couldn't find Mare after he had finished his training, he used it to contact the familiar. She also used it to find Eugene in the wide Lionheart forest. Mare could also reverse the direction of the communication. In other words, she was able to send a message to the device. That was how she had contacted Nina, who happened to be cleaning Eugene's room at the time. Then Nina had relayed the message to Carmen, who was in the main estate. Iris deeply inhaled the cigarette smoke. Her face was covered with clouds of thick smoke. Just one deep breath was enough for Iris to burn her cigarette to its filter. After that, she chewed until the cigarette was broken in half. The cigarette fell to the floor along with a cloud of smoke. Through the smoke cloud, a red ember dropped to the floor. Being conscious of each other, the three did what they had to do right now: attack. Everyone initiated their attacks at the same time. A dark light shone in Iris' demon eye. Her revolver was still in Eugene's hand, but that did not prevent her from firing it. Then Iris placed her hands on her sofa and pushed. Her hips moved upward as she swung her leg. Moving like a blade, No, like a whip, her leg approached Eugene at a tremendous speed. When the bullet left the barrel of the revolver, Eugene's head followed its movement. He had to keep an eye on the bullet's trajectory because this bullet was something created by the demon eye of darkness. Iris was just using a revolver because she liked it. Her darkness bullets did not need a gun to be fired, and they didn't even move straight. The darkness generated by Iris' demon eye moved in accordance with Iris' will. As the bullet touched his hair, Eugene suddenly sparked with electricity. His mana blended with lightning enabled him to move so fast that no one would have believed that he was even human. In the end, the bullet failed to go through Eugene's head and hit the wall behind him. Iris' kick was about to reach Eugene from above, so he swiftly kicked off the floor. Boom! With a backflip, Eugene instantly opened up the distance between him and Iris. Instead of Eugene, Iris ended up destroying the sofa, making the floor collapse in the process. Unable to withstand the air current, Carmen's cigar crumbled. That was how fast she moved. The coat that hung on her shoulder also flew away. Keeping her left fist at her chest, she moved her right fist so far back that some would have worried about her shoulder getting dislocated. When her left foot touched the ground, she turned her ankle and waist together. It looked as if she was throwing a cannonball using her body as the cannon, not just swinging her fist. Her straight fist attack penetrated Iris' darkness. Iris' eye shone once again. She used the demon eye of darkness to create more darkness. Whoosh! The darkness became a tornado, swallowing Carmen's fist attack whole. Landing his backflip, Eugene made the cloak of darkness swallow him whole. Creak! Eugene drew out the thunderbolt Pernoa from the cloak. 5 bolts of lightning were now ready to be fired. Pivy! He let his lightning bolts fly in Iris' direction one by one. Thump! With her insole, Iris kicked the liquor bottle that was rolling around the floor. Crush! Eugene's lightning bolts hit the liquor bottle, vaporizing the liquor. After her first fist attack, Carmen shortened the distance between her and Iris even more. Carmen spat out the cigar in her mouth. The room was now filled with the vaporized liquor smell and cigarette smoke. Carmen hated both smells. She was displeased with the current situation as it was, and the development was giving her even more reasons to be discontent. Rip. Using her left hand, which she had been keeping on her chest, Carmen ripped off her shirt's buttons, then she tightly clenched her fists. Her leather gloves weren't able to withstand her gripping power. They seemed like they would break apart at the seams. Her gray hair fluttered in the air as she accelerated and pounced at Iris. Tisk. Carmen clicked her tongue. Something had stopped Carmen's cannonball-like fist attack. She felt as if the floor had given out under her feet. In fact, she felt as if she was about to fall. Iris had spread her darkness to cover the floor. It almost looked as if she was inviting Carmen to visit the bottom of an abyss. Of course, rather than approaching any further, Carmen backflipped right out of the situation. Can I kill her from here? Eugene clicked his tongue. He let go of the thunderbolt and spread the cloak of darkness wide like wings. Eugene was fighting against Rakshasa Princess Iris, the legendary dark elf who had been notorious for 300 years. There was zero chance for him to kill Iris as things stood. He could try using Ignition, the Moonlight Sword, or the Holy Sword. However, none of these cards was worth anything in front of the ace that was Iris. Even Uid, who had borrowed the monstrous power of a Demon King's remnant, was pathetic compared to Iris, the real monster. She had already been strong 300 years ago, but her current self left her past one in the dust. Her most noticeable achievement was her seemingly perfect control of the demon eye of darkness. Iris hadn't been able to use her demon eye's power quickly and proficiently 300 years ago. This was the reason why Eugene hadn't thought of Iris as a suspect when Lavera and the old man had disappeared from the shop. He hadn't expected Iris to get this proficient. What about the Moonlight Sword? The thought came to his mind, but Eugene didn't pull the sword out. He wasn't certain whether or not he would be able to cut Iris deep enough to kill her with the incomplete, weakened Moonlight Sword. It was also the same for the Holy Sword. In fact, the Holy Sword couldn't help Eugene much while fighting against Iris. The power of her demon eye was so ridiculous that even with the Holy Sword's divine power, purifying it was a tall order. Iris reached out her hand. This battle had begun pretty abruptly, but she still kept her twisted smile. She bent her long fingers and her eyes shone with black light again. At that moment, clusters of darkness appeared beside Eugene, one on his left and another on his right. The two clusters tried to squash Eugene to death from both sides. The cloak of darkness spun in the air. After swiftly pulling out WE from the cloak, Eugene came out of the cloak and slashed at Iris' darkness, but he could feel nothing. He hadn't felt this way for a long time. He knew that he had cut something, but he had felt no resistance from his blade. Well, Eugene wasn't wrong. Once his sword had passed through Iris' darkness, the pieces of darkness instantly reattached themselves. However, his attack had not been a vain attempt. Along with his strike, Eugene had used the magic formula. He infused his mana into the formula to cast space expansion spell. Whoosh! The darkness, which was a cohesive mass, inflated as if somebody had grabbed the top and bottom of the cluster and stretched it. It was impossible to use magic to break through Iris' darkness itself, but he could physically slash the darkness apart and push his magic through the gap. She's tricky to deal with, Eugene thought. She had also been like that 300 years ago. Norgiabella was way stronger than Iris, but Iris was by far more troublesome. The reason was simple. Sienna and Anise had perfectly shielded the hero party from Norgiabella's attack. However, Hamel had dealt with Iris alone most of the time. She wasn't great at hand-to-hand combat at the time. Crush! Iris' front kick pushed Eugene backward. Before her kick reached him, Eugene had already cast 17 barrier layers, plus an aura shield. However, her one kick had been enough to shatter Eugene's defensive bubble and make him fly back. Not only that, but she had done all this while still sitting on the sofa. Ahaha. Iris brightly giggled as she crossed her legs once more after the kick. Quick, quick. During the process of pushing Eugene backward, Iris' sofa creaked. She placed her arms on the sofa's headrest and raised her head. You are the silver lion of the lion hearts, am I correct? Iris asked with interest. Instead of answering, Carmen pulled out her fingers from the ceiling. She wasn't far from the ground, so it didn't take long for her to drop to the floor. As she fell to the ground, Carmen was already launching attacks on Iris with her leg, leaving hundreds of afterimages. It was unbelievable that she was able to strike so many times in what was nothing more than the blink of an eye. However, Iris wasn't flustered. Her wide-open eyes followed Carmen's every attack, then she summoned her darkness to block. Carmen's kick made Iris' darkness disperse. Yet the darkness that was scattered away gathered once more. No matter how much it dispersed, it never disappeared. Carmen's feet were on the ground once more, while Iris did not move from her sofa. As for Eugene, the wall behind him had put an abrupt stop to his flight backward. It had only been several minutes since Carmen had come to this place, but the 3rd Division of Black Lion Knights arrived. These knights, whose skills were recognized by all countries, ran down the stairs. Don't come in, Carmen spoke as she kept her eyes on Iris. Just watch. Don't interfere. Iris grinned, feeling the creaking sofa as she leaned against it. She was speaking to the dark elves who were standing behind her. Eugene's body slid down to the floor. Thweek. Carmen pulled the gloves back on with her teeth to make sure they stayed on. Frick. Iris' finger made a cracking sound. Badump. Eugene's heart beat hard. Just like the first time, everyone began to move at the same time. Iris generated more darkness to cover up the basement. Her darkness spread like an ink drop staining a white paper. The floor of the basement now looked like a portal that led to God knew where. It was hard to distinguish if Iris had simply covered the floor or created a passage that led to some abyss of darkness. This was why fighting against Iris was tricky. No one could identify the dark lump without touching it. It was a bizarre power that couldn't be understood even through Akasha. I know since I have experienced it several times. Eugene shrugged. Would Carmen know? He wasn't sure, but there was no time to let her know about Iris' power. Carmen was already moving forward. The three were engaging in very close combat. He was familiar with this type of combat. With his left hand, Eugene drew out a karambit knife which he had hidden on the inside of his belt. Putting his index finger through the ring pommel, he tightly clenched his fist around the grip. Then he condensed his sword force into a thin layer that covered the blade. Pzzz. Lightning sparked around his body again as Eugene accelerated forward. Carmen had already moved, a bit ahead of Eugene. She leaped across the floor to avoid getting swallowed by the darkness and swung her fist against the wall of darkness that Iris had created. When her fist touched the wall, however, Carmen simply pulled back. Her clairvoyance-like intuition, which she had developed during years of training, had warned her that something was wrong the very first instant that her fist had touched the wall. If she had pushed through any further, Iris' darkness would have swallowed Carmen's fist. Her clusters of darkness communicated with each other through space. So if Iris had made her darkness disappear while Carmen's fist was swallowed, her hand would have been mutilated. It didn't matter how much Carmen had trained or how much of a treasure her gloves were. Carmen changed the angle of her punches, flexibly turning her torso and attacking Iris' darkness from the side. This time, just before her fist reached Iris' darkness, her strike created an explosion, blasting apart and dissipating the darkness. Eugene's instantaneous velocity was faster than Carmen's. When Carmen had burst Iris' darkness, Eugene had already moved past her and entered Iris' attack radius. There was one thing that was much better than 300 years ago. There were many more kinds of weapons the Eugene could use right now compared to when he was Hamel. WNYD's wind was one of them. Surrounding Eugene's body, it moved ahead of Eugene, so it touched Iris' darkness before Eugene did. The wind either got swallowed by the darkness or was blocked. It didn't do much, but that was all Eugene needed to figure out the characteristics of Iris' darkness. She could only control 2 clusters of darkness 300 years ago. That had been the case before, but she had clearly developed her ability so much that she now had perfect control of her darkness. Maybe she had also gained other powers, but for now, Eugene could only be vigilant against powers that he knew about for sure. Zing. The karambit knife's curved blade shone with Eugene's sword force. As Carmen swung her fist from the side, Eugene used his knife to attack from above. Iris was still sitting on her sofa, but her eye was covered with darkness again. Her darkness swallowed Eugene's attack. Or rather, Eugene let his attack be swallowed. He had various weapons, but he had chosen a karambit for one reason. It was easier to move his own limbs than swing a weapon. And I don't care if this one breaks. My attack will be less powerful though, Eugene quickly thought. Iris' darkness undulated, turning into waves. The waves of darkness rushed over Eugene and Carmen. In response, Eugene summoned more fierce winds to shield them against the waves as the sword force wrapping his knife let out sparks. Carmen was now standing beside Eugene. They had shortened the distance between them and Iris in no time, and at this point Iris could no longer stay still on her sofa. The darkness summoned by her demon eye pushed Iris forward. After she unsteadily stood up from the sofa, as if someone had pulled her up, she created a shield to protect the dark elves standing behind her. Then she raised her hands. Dozens of attacks struck at Iris in virtually a single moment. Carmen punched and kicked at Iris in an attempt to push her back, then tried to grab her head and twist her neck. Timing his own attacks in tandem with Carmen, Eugene aimed slash after slash at Iris, assaulting her relentlessly. Actually, there was no point in discussing each attack separately. What happened was that, without interfering with each, Eugene and Carmen attacked Iris in every possible way. Iris moved her arms with a twisted smile. Her darkness spread out, blocking every angle from which Carmen and Eugene could strike. Their options were already limited anyway, and even though they had launched hundreds of different attacks, hardly any of them had impacted Iris in any significant way. In the 10 minutes elapsed since the start of the battle, their attacks had amounted to nothing more than vain attempts. No matter how formidable the duo was, they both failed to reach their target. In spite of many powerful attacks being exchanged, never mind the basement collapsing, the building hadn't even been shaken once. The only things that had been destroyed were the table, the sofa, and the door. The table and the sofa had been smashed by Iris, while Carmen had crushed the door as she entered. That was how precise their attacks were. Without wasting any power, each of the 3 focused solely on their target. Form change. Carmen took a lateral stance. Heaven genocide. With her ragged leather glove, she grabbed her pocket watch. Alaster form. The name didn't give Eugene the slightest clue as to what Carmen's technique was.